I guess traditional roles say that the man is supposed to pay, and maybe the woman's supposed to give the tip. I don't know. That's what my dad said. But I don't, you know, what about when, because you got the marriage part, but what about before you get to the marriage part? How much now in 2013? How much does tradition play? Because, you know, we've seen some statistics say females are overwhelming or catching up or whichever way, making more money than men, and that, I guess, if the trend continues, then that's going to filter down to the dating scene. And will traditional roles be cast aside? Will it matter? Is ego get in the way?
Okay, my name is Felicia Newman. I'm an attorney here in town. I make a lot of cracks about what type of man that black women should date or not date, but I think what it really boils down to is values. If you have the same values as another person, then it probably shouldn't matter what profession they have. And when I'm talking about values, I'm not talking about, oh, I wouldn't kill somebody. You don't want anybody who would kill somebody. I'm talking about, would you buy something that's hot? Like, I don't buy hot stuff. When the man comes into the beauty shop, I'm like, I don't want that stolen shit from Dillard's. Okay? I'll buy my own clothes. And that's a value. That's a value. I mean, do you want somebody who lies? If you see somebody who tries to get over in the grocery store or, you know, gets too much change back, are they going to give that extra 20 they got back to Kroger, or are they going to keep it? I mean, those are the values that you look at. If you can find someone who meets your values on the same level, then you can get along.
What do you feel about that?
What, you talking about making more money?
Yeah, what do you feel about that?
I mean, I have old-fashioned views about men and women, because I think men have not progressed with society on how they should interact with women. We've kept it moving, and they're still in the 50s mentality. So until they decide that they want to, I'm not saying it's bad, I'm just saying they want to take care of their woman, they want to pay all the bills, they want to be the head of the household, they want to tell them what to do, but we don't live in that time anymore. We just live in a time where everybody works, everybody has to work because things are so much more expensive. And I don't think there should be a power struggle in a relationship. My parents have been married for 41 years. My mother tells me all the time it's about a partnership that they have. And it's about who has the better answer for whatever problem comes up. And just like Brother Muhammad said, whoever's right. So there is no head of the house. So my father doesn't rule my mother, my mother doesn't rule my father. They do everything together. And that's what I've seen for the last 40 years.
And Brandon, we got some upset men back here, I think. Okay, we're going to let talk.
My name is Juanita. I'm also an attorney here in town. You were talking about traditional roles, and I think that's part of the problem with today, in that the traditional aspects of pursuing and everything else is gone. I do feel like during the pursuing stage that a man is supposed to ask a woman out on the dates and to pay for those dates. Not half-half, or I get this date, you get the next date. If you're interested in me, you need to show me that you're interested. The problem that I've dealt with professional or even just working, it doesn't have to be professional in terms of lawyer, doctor, or anything like that, but just people who go to work every day and make their own living, is that with the single man, they think, oh, I'm a good catch, you need to worship the ground I walk on. But what you forget is I'm a good catch as well. So it goes both ways. Once you pursue me and I gain an interest in you, then I will treat you like the king that you're supposed to be treated like, as long as I'm treated like the queen that I'm supposed to be treated as. Now it's treat me as a king and you should just be happy you're with me. No. So that's the problem that I've encountered with the professional black male in dating. So.
My name is Jessica Green. I think one of the interesting things about people talking about traditional family values and man being the head of the household, etc., what you have to also understand is that in the 50s and all that, the man was making more money. So when we talk about traditional values, we fast forward to the 21st century, and certain men still have that same expectation as far as what is supposed to happen inside the house, but it's not happening. If you're gonna have the same expectation as far as 50s values, then maybe you should bring to the table what the husbands would bring to the table in the 50s, which is not often the case. I don't have an issue with dating blue-collar workers or dating someone who doesn't have a college degree. That's never been an issue for me. What is more important to me is whether or not somebody can be honest, whether or not they're not a cheater. And I think that's more of a significant issue in Black culture than even whether or not somebody has a college degree, do they make more money. And I think that that's some focus that we need to spend on as Black people as we try to repair the Black family, to try to give a little bit of healing and to be able to reteach Black men honestly how to teach women, because I feel like that unfortunately many of our brethren are sorely lacking in that regard.
You want to say something, Sid?
Well,
It's not necessarily rebuttal, but I'm gonna pass the mic back here to my brothers. They're gonna really get it set off. But this is good because, you know, we don't talk about these things. You know, my father is a pastor. He's been a pastor for, probably at least 30 years. But one of the things he told me when I got married, he said that you can go, he said, to get a driver's license, you gotta get a manual, you gotta get a permit, sometimes driver's aid. You know, there are requirements to get a driver's license, but you can go right downtown and get a marriage license with no training at all. So I think a lot of us, if we just be realistic, we kind of just figure things out along the way and look at other relationships and try to, you know, evaluate those relationships and measure them to ours. But most of us have never really had any training on marriage. And we have to ask the question, why is it that in the Black community that our women are earning more money than us? I think that's not an accident. You know, what we have to deal with is the nature of a man. If a man does not feel empowered in his home, you're going to have a very insecure and unbalanced relationship. Now, I think it's okay for a woman to make more, but as a man, I refuse to let my woman pay more bills than me. I'm not gonna let that happen. If I gotta walk around broke, I'm gonna pay everything and just walk around broke. For me personally, that's how I keep my manhood intact. And then for men, I want to give us 4 T's on how to bring peace in our house. These are simple, tangible things that we can all do. 4 T's. The first thing is think. Think. T is for think. Call your woman every day or send her a text. This won't let you know I was thinking about you. Okay? That's a little something we can do. Thank your woman for the little things that she does. Baby, I really appreciated that meal that you made last night. So we gotta let them know we're thinking about them, and then we have to thank them. And then the third T is touch. We have to learn how to touch women without it always being sexual. Because if you talk about affection to men and affection to women, you're gonna get 2 totally different definitions. You know? And we're adults here, and men, affection is holding hands and cuddling as long as it ends up sexual. With women, they want to touch and cuddle and then just leave it at that sometimes. So when you talk about affection, men and women have 2 totally different definitions of affection. So we have to learn how to touch and be more affectionate. And then the next thing is time. Our women, most of us who are busy and professional, that's the #1 complaint we get from our women. Is that right? That we don't make time for them. So what I try to do once a week or every other week, I just won't work, take the whole day off, turn the cell phone off, and just kick it with my wife. So things like that help keep balance in a relationship. So I just wanted to share some of that with you. But I think I want to hear from my good friend back here, James Madry. If it's okay, Brandon, I ain't trying to take over. But he's going to come and give a totally different perspective and even disagree with me, but I think it's good that we have dialogue like this. So, but I heard the brothers back here chuckling. I want to hear what they were saying. I think you got them upset, Felicia, so we're going to see what they're going to say.
I do that a lot.
I want you to attend to yourself, because if you know your own faults, then you don't have to worry about what anybody else thinks. They're basically yours. And it's just a matter of somebody wants to accept those faults or not, and whether you want to accept somebody else's faults, because there is no perfect person, just like there's no perfect universe. Everything operates with negatives and positives, because that's what gives life, is the negatives and the positives. So for me, I just think you have to figure out what works best for you, and what works best for somebody else may not work for you. So you have to break. Sometimes people say stick to the traditions. Sometimes you have to break traditions and start your own traditions, but still acknowledge some of those previous traditions. But you have to start out your own path, and that's a hard thing to do, because we all want to walk in somebody else's footpath. We all want to admire somebody else's marriage, because we feel insufficient. But do it, do it your way. And I think if you can learn to do that, I think that regardless how it comes out, you can still be you. That's all I have to say.
That's it for Sean.
Are you Sean Gardner gonna have the word?
Right now, man, I'm gonna get that like
I just remember seeing a guy and a woman dance together. They actually would dance. Guy asked a girl to dance, she would dance, whatever. It seems like today, even when you go out, if you do go out, I see a cluster of women dancing together. I never see a guy and a woman dancing together. I see women holding hands with each other. They're not even gay, just because they don't want another guy to talk to them. I've seen this today. I'm not making this up. You've probably seen it too. I think it's the dumbest thing in the world, but I think this starts with a large problem. I'm a real estate investor. 80% of my business is with women, whether they're on Section 8, whether they're realtors. But more important, a lot of my tenants are women who are career-minded. They go to school, they go to work. But yet, the lease is always in their names. And I'm like, is anyone else living here? Or my boyfriend? But I don't want him on the lease. I don't know if we're going to be together like that. Or he ain't working right now, so I don't want him to affect the credit when you run it. So my thing is, as a man, before you can start saying that I'm not meeting the right men and things of that nature, why do you even date guys like that? It's almost like you're settling yourself. I see this all the time. And I work with a lot of women. And it seems like the women always have their shit together, but they always been dating a dude that ain't got his shit together. And then they complain about, ain't nobody out here, or all the good ones got somebody. And you just overlooking the good ones, so you got your expectations. Last point I want to make is, I was having a conversation with a group of black women just the other day. This was the most shocking thing I've ever heard in my life. A woman actually told me that getting married is not the new thing in 2013. She said she'll probably never get married. Just in her age generation, it just doesn't happen. And I'm not gonna say she likes it, but she seemed to be okay with that. So I'm just taking all the things that I just said just now, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, what does the world really come to? You know what I'm saying? I just thought that'd be just a little food for thought.
I like that.
I was listening to what he said about, black men not making as much money as black women. Is that on purpose? Is it an accident? And as an educator, it caused me to think about what happens in our classrooms. And we have these schools filled with black children. And pretty soon, parents are going to start getting their letters talking about how their child performed on the K-Prep assessment last spring. And you open that envelope, and if it says that your child is a novice, that means they are not at their reading level, or they are not on level for math. And we should be catapulted into action when we see that our children are not where they should be in reading and math. Because in 10 years, in 15 years, when they're trying to start a career, they cannot get accepted into college. They're going to have a hard time getting through community college or any sort of career placement or career training opportunity. So then they are without a job, can't put them on lease because they're not working. That's what we're growing. If we continue to let these children go through school and graduate being a novice, that means they cannot read. And I don't, I can say that in this atmosphere because we're just being real. That means they are not reading. That means they cannot do math. We have got to do something to help our children. And it's not just at school. It's things that we do at home. Turn the TV off, turn the music off, and get your homework done. Call in the teacher. But we're not doing those things. And so what's happening? We're having this conversation today, and people are talking about marriage really isn't my thing today. So what happens in 2023? When kids are saying, oh, this really ain't my thing. I don't even know married people. I don't even know people who've been in relationships. Because I don't have to have a job, I don't have to sustain myself, I don't have to take care of myself or anybody else. Because you can't. You can't take care of yourself. You don't have the skill set. And you can't, 45 years old trying to go back to high school is hard. So we've got to think about, too, the situation that we're in today and the situation our children are going to be in because we're not equipping them with what they need to be able to earn the money so they can be the leaders of households and families.
Okay, hi everybody. My name is Andrea, and I'm going to come from a different perspective, from a single woman who knows who she is, who's been waiting on God to help her make that decision. And it's not necessarily, I like what Felicia said about values. I think our values and our system is different. Our children are raised differently. We live in an era where men are taught that really you don't need to be married. You can get all you can get up front, right? You don't have to marry her. You don't have to make a commitment. And honestly, I told Brandon I didn't like this topic because we already know why, that there is such a disparity. Look at the number of black men that are dead in their graves because they're killing each other in the streets. Look at the number of black men that are gay, or black women that are gay. Let's look at the number of those who are already married. So the single pool for African American women who are educated is not there alone. So the numbers don't add up. So if the numbers don't add up, you either date outside your race or you choose to be single. And for as far as what the brother said about being in the clubs and girls holding hands, unless they're lesbians, I don't know about that. I just don't see that. I think that what happens a lot of times is they're enjoying each other's company because the men sit back and they peck and they watch and they know that they can get it the way they want because the women have a complete, like a competition clause amongst themselves. And a lot of times men put themselves out there like that, well, she won't do it. If you won't do it, she will. So I think that sometimes we have to be honest about the conversation. While yes, some women are aggressive, and yes, we do have this fairy tale about how relationships should be. I think that what we're having an argument that is around the surface and not one that's tangible, because we have to look at how our children are growing up. I was just amazed, and when I watched the game last week at Sierra's Lines a couple weeks ago about how she Christopher Columbus Day, and she did that. So that's teaching our little girls that, you know what, no, I don't have to have a relationship. I can do you just like you do me. And I think that that's what's happening. So as a family, as a black unit, I think that we are crumbling. Because a lot of times, I just don't think in society, our men are valuing marriage enough. So therefore, black women are adapting to that. Or they're dating outside of the race. Because regardless of whether you want to recognize it or not, you are still the head of the black family. Whether you walk up to it and you take ownership of it, you are. So we're still following your leading that. That's just my thoughts.
Thank you, Andrea. You want to go with some brother?
Good evening. I'm the other brother, Mom. I just think everybody's bringing about some really good points, but I'm 35 years old. I've been married for 9 years, happily married. I have a beautiful wife. I'm a professional investment banker for Chase Bank. Most of the women wouldn't even speak to me when I was out younger, looking for a mate. I was too short. My last name was Muhammad. Something that I didn't stick pistols in people's mouth. And this is from women who are supposed to be my peers. One thing that I've noticed since we talk about education doesn't just mean reading and arithmetic, but it also means we've never sat down and taught our young men how to be husbands and fathers. there's somebody who has come and stuck their hand inside of our home, inside of our neighborhood, to pull these young black men up out of here. And the other sister was talking about, you know, look at our young men killing each other. Well, in Iraq war and Afghanistan war over the last 10 years, there's maybe been 6,400 military troops that have been killed. And that's an astonishing number, isn't it? But and that's in 10 years, and that's in 2 wars across a whole other continent, right? Y'all agree with that? That's an astonishing number. There's an average of 8,000 to 10,000 black men that lose their life every year in homicides here in North America. That's 80,000 black men that have lost their life in the last 10 years. So you're right, sister. The men that you're looking for are dead. They're in the grave. Now, if they're not in the grave, they may be strung out on dope. They can't piss clean, so they can't get a job because it's cool to smoke blunt nowadays, right? It's cool to be torn down. No one has ever stopped and wondered why. Well, how did all these things get to your community in the first place? You all remember back in the 80s when it was real popular, man, for everybody to do coke and heroin. Remember? Remember that? Some of y'all remember that? No? It wasn't cool to do. I never seen Scarface. You know what I'm saying? It was cool in my neighborhood. I grew up all in New York. That was the thing. If you had money, you was doing coke. You wasn't smoking no weed, right? So you got all of these people addicted to these type of drugs, but somebody put them in your community in the first place. Then the government comes in and says, well, we're going to give you some aid, young woman, but you can't have this dude staying up here with you, right? So you got some food stamps, right? Not you specifically, but in general, right? Or you're going to get this type of aid, but if that man comes in there and he tries to be a man, we're not going to give you anything. So now you've broken up. This whole family unit has been broken up. It's a design thing, you know. It kind of hurts my heart a little bit, man, to really think that we're still having this type of conversation of who makes more money and who does. It doesn't matter. All of it got little old dead white people on it. All of it's been the same way. Why not work together and pool our resources? That's the one thing we ain't tried. We've tried education. Everybody in here probably got a degree or 2 or 5, right? We got more degrees than you can shake a stick at. Black people's spending power is over $1 trillion. It's $1.3 trillion a year. That's more than all of the United Kingdom makes, so it ain't money. Our problem is our unity inside the house. So, Sister Felicia, you're right. You gotta be right. You gotta work together. You gotta stand on truth. Is that right? Would you agree with that? Whoever's standing on truth at that point, but work together as a solid unit, man, to build up our community, to build up our house first. Let the man take the lead. If he's in the right, but if he's in the wrong, maybe he can sit down for a minute until he can get right. But don't put him all the way out. All right, I'm done. I'm off my soapbox. Thank y'all.
Oh, you want to say something now?
Y'all crazy, man. I ain't gonna say that off black. But here's the deal. So if we talk about professional black men, well, the first question, we go back to what some of the people have alluded to is our community. Well, our community ain't right. So we're wondering why we can't find a good mate. But like Dr. Barnes said, we can't even get our kids out of high school. We can't even get our kids out of high school where they can read. They get out of high school, they can't read. Get in middle school, can't read at graduate level. We wonder why you can't find a good man. But then, now sisters, here's another question though I want to throw out to you. When you're dating, now, one of the things I know is, and I get a lot of calls, right? And I hear sisters that say, whatever's going on. And then it always amazes me that they end up in situations that they knew coming. You knew it was a train wreck. I mean, you knew it. But then you did it anyway. And then what happened? You ended up at Grand Lawrence's event telling them there wasn't any good black men. So really, I know real talk. I mean, do we know what we're looking for when it's time to date? That's one thing, but then two, do we know how to date? Now, I had a sister, and I'm gonna pass the mic after this. I had a sister, and we met and we connected. And she says, do you have a woman? I said, no, I don't have a woman. I'm not out there like that. And then I said, but I periodically I date. And you know what she says to me? You date? To see, you know, I try to tell sisters all the time, you date the dude and still that you're going to work your time. But the problem is, now this is just what I'm seeing, and who I talk to when women call me, they'll date, and they put all their eggs in one basket. So all of a sudden, you went on a date with Tyrone. But Tyrone went on a date with Felicia Wednesday. You sit in Jazzy Blue and you clock. Why? They get to know each other. So I'm gonna put let me look at my notes. Make sure I put everything out there. Oh yeah, boy. So I try to sit back. I really did. I try to sit back. I think we also have to be mindful that in the black community, the whole idea of philosophy of the black man is almost non-existent. So what do I mean by that? So, you know, if you talk to a lot of young people, their idea of manhood is being a thug, being tough. Come on now. So when Dr. Lawrence said, I can't read, but I can impose the cool pose, I can be tough today, I can knock you off. If you make fun of me reading, that's what I'm gonna do. Now let me flip it. So for our men, we don't understand what manhood is. Right, I'm 39, didn't grow up with a father. In my book, I talk about I didn't have positive male role models. But then my sisters don't know what manhood is, because I've seen sisters get a good man, and then dump the good man to go get the dude with the Timbos. And I wear Timbos too, but my point is, you get rid of the good guy for the guy who has a police record. And I was kind of police record too, but my point is, but y'all know where I'm going with. Y'all get rid of the good guy. You know what I'm saying? And then here we go. Back in Brandon Morrison's event at Jazzy Blue. Ain't no good man. No, you got rid of the good man because, like MC Light said, you wanted a rough man. Okay.
I guess one of the things I want to do is, instead of, I just want to put questions out there more than anything, because we're always saying, well, there's no good black men. The question is, where do they come from? They come from out of a womb, a black woman, and the sperm of a black man. And more than likely, he grew up in a black church, probably grew up in a political system that we understand, economic system. So somewhere within this whole system, we're producing this. And if we don't look at how it's being produced, then the next 50 years will be somebody else will be sitting there talking about the same things. And I guess the question is that when a woman chooses to engage with some man, or some man chooses, what's your mindset at that point in time? You know, for both people, not just the man, but the woman, what's the mindset? When you're into that relationship, understand that the end result could be another person. So is this other person prepared for the other person? Even if you and that other person falls out, is he prepared to take on the responsibility of being that sole parent? If he's not, then you gotta ask yourself, then how did I get in this relationship? You can't sit there and point your fingers, because that's what we like doing, is pointing the fingers at other people, instead of holding a mirror to yourself and saying, okay, what did I do wrong? And if these black men are being produced wholesale like this, then what's been taught in the homes? What's been taught in the schools? What's been taught in the churches, the mosques, and all of our systems? What are we teaching to end up with this final product? Because at the end of the day, it's our product. And the product is only as good as the manufacturer. So if we're manufacturing crap, then that means we're crap. I mean, as hard as it sounds, so that's where self-analysis has to come in now. And if we're not doing that, evaluating who we are, what we are, and then how are we ending up with this product? And then we're not looking at, okay, it's defective here, it's defective here, or it's good up until this point, and then all of a sudden it breaks. Okay, then why is it breaking? Then what are we teaching them or not teaching them that's causing these constant failures over and over? Because the conversation we're having now, I heard this conversation when I was a kid, 30 years ago. This is nothing new that we're talking about. I heard this in the 70s. Ain't no black men out here. And the same black women who said there ain't no good black men produced some other raggedy-ass black men. That was 30 years ago.
Because they kept saying, well,
I'm just saying, so therefore, when you start feeding that psychology, and it's your kid who's a young male, you've already put it out there. And whatever you put out in the universe, it comes back. That's what the universe is. Whatever you put out in the universe, it comes back. It's called reciprocity. Let me end on that.
You got all type of heads up, man.
They're going to tear you up.
We want to thank all y'all for coming out this evening.